She's like, what's up, girl?
I'm talking about you. Your belly hurt? Mm-hmm. I'm not surprised. You had 2 fucking bags of crackers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Ignacio Rivera, your host, and I'm here with...
I'm Daniel Coleman. I use he and they pronouns. I'm a movement healer, a thinker. I love working with BIPOC, queer, and trans people.
And he's my boo. Okay, so today we're talking about sex education. And we are going to be dissecting Sex Education Season 1 and 2. Season 3 is set to come out possibly in the summer of 2021, and we're excited about it. Many people told me to watch the show, and I was like, I'm not watching it. I don't know why. I was pushing against it because I'm a sex educator. Everybody was like, you should watch it. And then I put it to the side, and then I watched it, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I watched it, and then you were the one that kept on telling me, you got to watch it.
So then I started it, too.
It's so good. It's such a good show for so many reasons. And so first we'll start off with our own brief summary of what we think sex education is about.
So it's nice because the actors are all in their 20s.
Yeah.
But it's about high school kids and all of the adults in their lives and all the ways they're trying to figure out what sex is because they're all having sex like crazy, but don't know a lot about sex or their bodies or pleasure or consent. And so they're navigating high school landia. Right.
Yes.
And it centers around a few main characters. So there's Otis and his mother Jean Milburn, who is a sex and relationship coach. But Otis, as the main character, is this young, white, heterosexual male who's actually very sexually repressed, but actually ends up being a sex coach to his
peers. Right?
Yeah. Because his mom is, so he thinks like by proxy, he has all of this information about sex and bodies, and he can sort of therapize his peers into being full sexual beings. So that's one part of the
and I'll add to that. And it is also, I keep thinking about it as a show for, when I first heard about it, sex education, I thought education as in school, that this is going to be about educating young people. But it's actually not. It's actually a show that really highlights that no one has a clue. Even the sex therapist has all the words and the clinical things, but she's also struggling with her own emotions about like loss and relationship, trust, and all of that.
Parenting.
Right. So we get to see the reality of people, their fears, their crazy hang-ups about sex, and that we're not alone in thinking about all of these like craziness, you know. And so there are definitely some themes that we pulled out, but I want to start first with like our favorite characters.
Yes.
So what was your favorite character?
So I think my top 2 favorites are Eric and Ola. So Eric, because he's, you know, fabulous black African gay young man
who's out,
and who's hilarious.
He is.
And he also is kind of not afraid of being a fool. I love that.
Yes, that is very true.
You know, he doesn't seem very fragile about being like goofy or out there. And Ola just seems very mature to me. Like I was saying, she kind of feels like the most adult of the teenagers and just her self-understanding.
It's her communication, I think, like, because she's one of the few that just says straight out, you know, I don't want this, I don't like this, or let's try this instead.
Or do this.
Yeah, I like her too. Okay, favorite characters, of course, Eric. Fucking love Eric. I fell in love with him, and I fell in love with his family because I absolutely love it when they show black people showing support for queers and their queer son who came out at 13 years old. And you can see that they struggled a little bit, like understanding, but you realize it's about his safety. They're terrified that he is going to be hurt and that he's going to be harmed, and you see the love of the father, which I really like, and it's like a clear love for his son, even though he doesn't understand him. So yes, Eric is a clear favorite for me. And then I love Jackson.
Yeah.
I really love Jackson. Jackson is such a fucking sweetheart. So Jackson is this jock, but in this particular story, this jock is a different kind of a jock, which I love. I think this is one of the things I love about this show. There are some like the average
like
kind of group. Yeah, the stereotypes, like the mean girls, like, who's part of the mean girls. It's Ruby, Olivia, and then Amy is right in the middle. They're trying to figure out if I'm a mean girl or am I hanging out with my girlfriend.
And then there's the other gay guy.
Oh, yeah, I want to say Omri. I forget his name.
I'm forgetting his name too.
But there was another gay guy who is very fashionable and hangs out. He's also very essentially a mean girl, right? So he's hanging out with a mean girl. So we see the stereotypes and stuff. But even within those stereotypes, as we learn the characters a little more, Jackson is not just a regular jock. And this is what I love about it, because we all have these kind of outer shells that, for the most part, some things might be true, but a lot of things are not. And so you see that Jackson has anxiety disorder. His two moms, lesbian, that are about to get a divorce. And
they're biracial couple.
One of them is terrified that her black son is not going to love her because she's white. And they just argue about his career and all of these things, right? So there's so much stress because Jackson is great. Wonderful swimmer, great at school. People like him, actually. He's a likable character, very, very sweet. And when you get to know him, you see that he is just a ball of anxiety. So many things are happening for him, and all he wants to do is be good. He wants to be good. And he's just a likable character. And I've never seen that kind of character as a black male. So it's the way they have given us these different characters, I really like. I also love Lily. I love Lily.
Perfect kind of awkward.
She's so awkward. She's tall and lanky, and she loves talking about sex. Has this very creative mind, and she's doing all this storytelling about alien sex and tentacles and all this stuff. And I'm like, I love her. I love her because she is all in the fantasy. She is just like letting her curiosity and her fantasy just like bloom, and she's being creative with her stories and really. But the thing with her, the thing with her is that she has these fantasies, but then we're in reality. So how does she navigate? Because she has this beautiful fantasy life, and then in reality, some issues come up with her, and we see how she navigates.
And she really wants to have sex, and I love that she just keeps walking up trying to find the virginal, quote unquote, boys in the school, and it's like, she'll stand closer, and she'll stand a little bit closer. Just so strange in the most beautiful, endearing way. It's like, will you have sex with me?
See, that's me now. See, like, I'm very direct like that. And for her to be in high school and to go up to somebody and say, can you have sex with me? Because I just want to get it over with and I just want to feel. That's also a common theme for the young people in this. It's like, can I just do it to get it over with? Because there's so much stress associated with this sex thing that nobody knows really that much information about.
And people can't know that I haven't had sex.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I can't lie. I mean, I have to lie about it. And even there was a scene where one of the mean girls, found out that she occasionally has sex with one of the band guys who's super geeky and nerdy. And it's found out because he's in the bathroom crying about it, right? Yeah. Because she just uses him. And then you get to see she's a mean girl, but then we see her story too. We see her story of her home life and what is happening in her home with her family and health. And then you see her tapping into this boy, and I get the sense that there's some emotion there, right? That she is... her mean girl status is something else. It's a cover. It's a mask. It's something that she's doing, and then she taps into this nerdy boy that no one's going to believe that she had sex with him, so she does that, which sucks because she's using him. But you see the complexities. That's what it is. The complexities of each of the characters.
Yeah. But we also thought what's going on with the adults.
Yes.
Was really interesting because so often we focus on what the kids are getting or not getting.
Right.
But in this, you see how the adults are just as clueless.
Oh my God.
and
So clueless.
navigating so much. Whether it's the parents or authority figures in the school at different tiers or the teachers, they're all going through their own stuff. So even Otis's mom, Jean, though she has a lot to say about everybody, and she's ready to therapize everybody and their mother, literally. She doesn't have the capacity for emotional intimacy at this point, and there's this wonderful scene with Jakob, who is Ola's father, where he actually confronts her after they kind of are having sex, but she's trying to keep it casual, and he really wants a relationship. And he turns it around when she comes back for like the third time or something. And he's like, you're not ready for the type of emotional intimacy that I'm looking for.
I was like, snap when he said that. Because I was like, a cis man is saying this on a show. You don't really hear that.
No.
Yeah.
And to the woman who's supposedly the expert on sex and relationships, right?
Yes.
So that showing that level of dynamism was really beautiful. And then you have the teacher.
Oh,
the English teacher. With the awkward band teacher, who really just wants to be having sex that takes her out of the sort of like appearance of being a straight-laced teacher role. That is not the sex life that she wants. And then this band teacher, who's also the sex ed teacher, who knows absolutely nothing about sex. They're hooking up, and the issue is that she wants dirty talk, and he has no idea how to do that.
Right. Very bad at it.
Very, very bad.
But that scene is really good too, because it's like so many things come out of it just because she wants dirty talk, or the ideas around what does this mean that she wants dirty talk, and that he is associating that with being horrible and mean to her.
Yeah.
So it's hard for him to access dirty talk because he doesn't want to disrespect her.
Right.
So here again, the complexities of just talk dirty to me, and then he's like, I don't want to disrespect this person that I really like.
Right.
And then we hear why. Stepping outside of her role. She's like, I'm so like this all the time. I want something completely different, which gives us a different conversation. It's not actually about the dirty talk. It's just about communicating something outside of your normalcy, like something that, feels different and exciting and stuff. So we get to hear, that. And I like the fact that he didn't want to disrespect her.
I know. Yeah. And it's really funny because even the way it finally happens, like he realizes that as she's describing what she wants, that it's not even about what is being said, it's how.
Yes.
And so he's calling her like names of fruits and vegetables. But it's the tone.
What did he say? I forget.
I don't even remember.
Squash. Oh my God, squash or some shit. I'm like, yes, like they're getting the hang of it now. What were some other themes that came out?
Self-exploration.
Self-exploration.
Yes.
There is self-exploration in many ways, but my favorite is Amy. Amy, because a guy that she's messing with says to her very seriously, what do you like? Like, tell me what you like. And she's like, what?
Right.
And this is always a story within a story, right? Because then you see that she's very sexually active, but not even enjoying herself.
No.
Like, she's just doing it because it's what everybody's doing, or it's making the guy happy or something. But you really get to a point where you're like, oh, she's just doing the motions, And she's like, I don't know what I want. So she goes to the sex therapist, Otis, says, I don't know what I want. And he suggests masturbating, which was awesome. And that vignette that they show of her masturbating, it's like every which way, on her stomach, on her back, this way, that way.
Up against the window, the other window.
And she is just like, she says, I think I broke my clit and I'm hungry, I want some crumpets,
She comes back to school the next day with her hair all crazy, like leaning up against the locker, like she just had the night of her life.
And I loved it because, and then when they went to that scene where she's with the guy again, she is so empowered, and she's
directing.
Yeah, she's like, okay, I want you to do this for a while, and in 5 minutes do that, then do a little twirl thing, and wait for the fireworks. It's like, bang, it's gonna come. And I love that because there she, like he opened up a dialogue there, and then she was able to tap into something, and now their sex and their intimacy or their fun time, however they want to call it, is going to be so much more elevated, and they're going to learn so much more, and the intimacy actually increases because there's care, like care and thinking about what somebody else wants. So love that.
And then we have Otis, poor Otis, who is, which we later learned that he has trauma because he saw his father cheating on his mother with a therapy client,
right?
When he was much younger. But initially, it produces a gag reflex for him to even try to touch himself or masturbate in any way, and he's completely disgusted by his own genitalia and his body. Yet he's giving out all this sex advice while this is still happening. And then there's a turning point where he's just getting hard-ons all the time, and he's just, in British English, wanking constantly. And just can't stop. But it's hilarious the way they film it, because they really make it quite comedic.
Yes.
But Otis is finally coming around to his body.
Yes.
There is a turning point, and so he's kind of catching up with his peers in that way.
That vignette was hilarious.
It was really funny.
When because I think he started touching it because of Ola.
I think
right?
so.
Because he and Ola kissed, and so he was tapping into that kiss and gagging, and then say, okay, let me try it again. Then he finally got it, and that was it. That's all she wrote. He was just masturbating, and he was like, I can't stop masturbating. His mother caught him masturbating in the car.
While she had left to go do an errand and was coming back.
I love it. And then there's what was the other one? Oh, sex therapy, which we talked about already. It's like Otis giving out this idea of sex therapy when he really doesn't know that much. He's kind of regurgitating things that he's heard his mother say, although some of them is really good advice, but you have to have some more understanding with that advice, and stuff. And
there's actually a really beautiful parenting scene towards the end of the second season where it's not funny anymore. Once she finds out that Otis has been doing that,
yes,
she's like, I thought I raised you differently. What are the ethics around this? And so while there's an element of fun and games of kids teaching each other, and even though she's not perfect, there's still the seriousness of her being an actual therapist,
right?
And was just really trying to get him to be accountable. This is actually not okay, and the fact that you're profiting off of it.
Exactly. Yeah. That was a good teachable moment there.
Yeah, because she was genuinely mortified. She was very upset.
Yeah. I forgot about that part. Yeah.
And
what was the other thing?
The chlamydia scene.
That was the most hilarious shit ever in the universe. The chlamydia scene. There was an outbreak of chlamydia at the school, and all you see is people with fucking masks on like it's coronavirus.
And running around screaming, worried that they're going to get chlamydia. Thinking that they can get it from the air. And we're talking the kids.
The teachers. Yeah.
And then the parents when they have an assembly because there's mass hysteria around chlamydia. And it just goes to show that there's not a cultural understanding of STDs, STIs, or sex in general.
Yes.
And so everyone is getting an education.
So funny. And I was like, why do they have masks? I thought they were doing a corona thing, and I was like, no, this show came out before.
Because it seemed like it was like a spoof of coronavirus or something.
Yes. Yeah. Another they made fun of chlamydia, how people thought it was, but of course that's a major issue, and that was mostly about safer sex, not even about not having sex, but talking about how this can be contracted, and and a more serious theme. There was a theme of abortion, where one of the characters, Maeve, who is Otis's business partner in the sex therapy thing, gets pregnant from Jackson, right? Doesn't tell Jackson, gets an abortion. And that's a really tough scene. There were two scenes that were really tough personally for me. The abortion scene, because it definitely reminded me of an abortion that I had when I was 15, and how difficult it was, and how you just kind of gotta go with the punches. And like with the woman, the older woman that was in there,
yeah.
I really liked that character.
I liked it too.
Because there was an older woman in there who, she's what they might call a frequent flyer.
Yeah.
So she's been there many times to have many abortions. And of course, as the onlooker, you're already assessing and making judgment on this woman.
Totally.
Why is she having all these abortions?
But she also comes into the clinic and she's such a huge character. Like,
Exactly.
Like so much personality, taking up all this space.
Yes.
You know,
and taking care of the
yes.
girls. Like taking care of the other girls, the younger girls, making them like, it's okay, I'm here. I've been here before. We'll get through this. Really sweet.
Yes.
And we have no idea if she's in an abusive relationship where maybe her husband doesn't allow her to use birth control,
Right.
and this is what she has to do. We
Right.
have no fucking clue. But I even found myself like looking at this character at first, and I'm like, why the fuck is this woman there?
Me too.
You know,
My
and
first
then
response.
afterwards I was like, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
I don't know this woman. I
Yeah.
have no fucking clue. She has health insurance, whatever.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of lovely moments in this show like that where you look at something, you have your idea of it, and then they just
And they
flip
shatter it.
Yeah, they flip it on you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
That woman character in that abortion clinic, I really liked her. I started in the beginning saying, shut up, you're talking too much. And then I was like, oh, she's nice.
Yeah. And then she was also kind of, very upset about this abortion, even though she still is going through it.
Right.
You can see each one is still hard for her.
Yeah, yeah.
She still goes through a process.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one, a very, very good one. And then theme of queerness and bisexuality, of course, which I love. Interestingly enough, I mean, we have Eric, who's out. We have the other kid Eric, who's out. The other kid who is out as well, who's part of the Mean Girl crew. And then the bully, which is another theme here.
And Raheem, too.
And Raheem, the French kid who came and started going to the school. So there's gayness around, right? And there's also...
Ola and Lily, too.
Right, there's like some bisexuality, lesbianism. Some might be experimentation. Some are probably more identities, exploring. But what I like about it is that queerness was not an issue. The only time queerness is an issue is with the internalized homophobia. That's Eric. Not Eric. Is it Eric? Adam. Adam. That Adam has. Because Adam is a bully. And Adam bullies Eric.
Yeah.
And has been bullying Eric for the longest time around being gay and all of these things. And then second season, it flips and you find out that he is suppressing so much feelings. And really, he is in, what's the good word to say? Like, he is intrigued by Eric.
Yeah,
he's intrigued, yes, because his family, his black family is supporting him. He is out and loud. He dresses the way he wants, and he gets shit for it. Like, he's living his life getting shit every fucking day and still doing it, and that's why he hated him.
Right.
Because he's like, I am fucking your life up every single day, and you still come back.
Right. Right.
And I think they ended up in detention.
Yeah.
And then the bully ends up giving Eric a blowjob.
Right.
Like, bang, out of nowhere.
Just waiting to be alone with him so that it was acceptable.
Right.
But I think there's also, there are elements that you can see that outside of that bubble of the school, Eric understands that as a black gay man, he's not safe.
Yeah.
And there's that scene where he does get punched in the face because he's dressed up to see Hedwig and the Angry Inch for his birthday as a tradition with Otis, and Otis ends up bailing because the sex therapy with Maeve was more pressing or important to him at that period of time, and dressed fully as Hedwig was not. It's not safe in that context, wherever they are in this sort of like countryside town in the UK. And so it's like Adam's the bully, but it's still a safer bully, you know, if you can even give hierarchies to bullies, than the larger context, which is what the father's afraid of.
Yes. And you just said something that made me think about that scene where they were both dressed like that.
Yeah.
They were both dressed like that, but Otis didn't have to think about it. Even though Otis was dressed as Hedwig, the way he even carried himself walking was very different from a gay man dressing like that and walking in the street. And those people who punched him knew it. Yeah. They saw him and then they targeted him and punched him. Right. And then we see this shifting. But a part of that, the queer theme and the bullying, the bullying was a big theme, was after Eric gives him the blowjob. I mean, Adam gives him the blowjob, and they are now essentially secretly seeing each other. Yeah. That was alarming to me, and then it shifted, which I was glad. It was alarming to me because, and then it was like, here we are again. That this black gay boy is maybe believes that no one will ever love him enough, that he is going to love the bully that's been torturing him forever. That made me so upset, you know. But then there's a point where Eric says, wait a minute, no, you're hiding, you're throwing little rocks at my window, having me come out, we're doing all this fun stuff by ourselves, but you're ashamed of yourself, you're ashamed of me, and you're still in essence my bully, because nobody knows. And so I like that he named it, and he said, you are my fucking bully, and it can't be this way. And he essentially like put a ultimatum, and he took it. And I like the way you talked about that piece when he came out. Can you say that again with the show, at the end? Well, it's also important that Eric, when this French kid Raheem comes, that they have an entire relationship, because Eric hadn't had a gay relationship before. That's right. And so he is like gaining this experience with this kid as all this Adam stuff is still ongoing, and Adam goes away to military school, which kind of helps create some space there. But then, so Eric is with Raheem, and then the school puts on this Romeo and Juliet that's like this very futuristic. You can tell it's directed by Lily. Tentacles. It looks like a scene from her comics. And at the end, Mr. Gruff, who is who's the headmaster and Adam's father, he just can't handle the level of sexual explicitness, not even innuendo, in this. Like, it can't be happening in high school. Like, just always about trying to shut down anything that's about freedom of expression of any kind. And so he like runs on stage, and then Adam has also been because someone told Adam something, I forget, but it was basically like, you need to express what you feel. Like, his mother. It was his mother, which is another thing, another adult thing. So many things to talk about this show. Yes. Yeah. So he's running from his house because he wasn't at the play, and so Gruff has already shut it down. So there's the younger Gruff, and he busts in and is like, Eric, where's Eric? Where's Eric? And he's like, I'm over here. And he comes up to Eric, and what I thought was so important about that was that he doesn't tell Eric, I love you, I want to be with you. Nothing profound, because he's so emotionally shut down because of his father and his life. And he just says, I want to hold your hand. Yes, that's the extent of what he can do. I thought that was so sweet. That's where he's at. So vulnerable. And exactly where he was at. Because I think it would have been ingenuine for him to be like, I love you, after everything. Just to say, can you hold my hand, or I want to hold your hand. Spoke volumes. Spoke volumes, and people knew what that was. Right. But Eric was still with Raheem. And so that, Raheem runs out, and there's this moment of like, here's this kid that's been completely doting on Eric, but there's this complex storyline with a bully. So then I'm curious to see what happens in season 3. Me too. Where that goes, because is there a reconciliation possible where it's not just, as you were saying, like Stockholm syndrome, with the previous bully with Eric, plus also Raheem is another like person of color, and then Adam is this white boy. Exactly. So that's a very good analysis there. You're like thinking about what's going to happen in the next season. Because I do want to see more conversation about that, about because one of the things that I was saying before was that it is a reality that some people who are bullied, sexually assaulted, and raped sometimes end up having relationships with the people who harmed us. Many people don't understand that, and I do, and there is an understanding of that because we have a thing called, survival in us.
Right.
And sometimes we need to survive a horrific event.
Right.
And sometimes creating a relationship out of something so horrible makes it so that thing never happened.
Right.
Because then you're in a relationship, and so people in relationships don't harm each other, supposedly, right? So our brains work in a lot of ways to keep us safe sometimes, or keep us from not falling apart.
Right.
So I definitely wanted to mention that because I do not want to shame anyone who has ever been in that kind of a situation or experience.
Right.
But I definitely want some more conversations about that because there's so much bullying and intimate partner violence when it comes to young people, because we're not talking about all the rules and how do you set your boundaries and how you communicate and stuff. We're only really concentrating on the sexual stuff because we're afraid of it, because we're scared of pregnancy and STIs and but we're not thinking about a lot of the emotional aspects of it. So yeah.
And the intrigue of the bully, like what could be possible here. I know for me too, as a survivor and as someone who's been in DV situations, is like even when you're presented with someone who is so much who's so sweet and kind and nice, why you stay with or stick with your abuser, right? And how long it can take to get out of that situation. And is this a storyline of Eric's, right? Is that what's gonna happen here? I'm so curious because there's also the sort of rehabilitation process of Adam that Eric is now participating in. Right.
Yes, and also there was this thing with Raheem and Eric that Raheem is doting on him and everything, but you see that they don't have a lot in common. Because Eric's family is very religious. He is very close to his family. He loves his sisters, his mom, his dad.
Still goes to church.
Right, and then Raheem is doesn't believe in God, so they're, and not a bad thing, but very separate from him. And so there was even a joke, something that Eric looked at a flyer and said it looks like a bunch of dicks, and Raheem didn't see it.
Oh, it couldn't even see.
Right, but then Adam looked at it and said, "Yes." Adam said, "Oh, that looks like a bunch of dicks," and they're like, "Yeah, they see things a little bit more closely together." Right. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to how that's going to play out, for sure. And how Adam is going to have a relationship with his dad, because his dad essentially is the bully that taught him how to be a bully. His father has no communication skills. He is horrible with his mom.
Terrible with children, even though he's the headmaster of a high school.
So I want to see how that's going to work out, especially with the mom and the dad breaking up. She is coming into herself and trying to live her life. She's a beautiful woman who he hasn't touched in years. 6 years, I think. She said, So she is trying to figure this out, and now he's feeling the loss of that. So I think there's going to be a major shift in his character in the next season. And what else do we have here? And the sexual assault. Yeah, that one's another major one, because how did it start again?
The headmaster makes a copy of the notes because Jean, Otis's mom, was after the chlamydia scare. She stands up and kind of explains that. That this is not how... Was it her that explains that this is not how chlamydia is transmitted? And also there's clearly a major problem in the sex education at the high school. Right. And so then the headmaster, Mr. Gruff, retorts back, well, how would you teach it? And she explains very simply, three words: communication, consent, and something else. Yeah. He's like, well, if you're so smart, why don't you da-da-da? So she starts coming around the school, and she's essentially having office hours. And that are meant for students, but of course all the teachers, some of the teachers are also dropping in, and so Groff's ex-wife, soon to be ex-wife, starts coming in and just sharing about. And then he's like, "Oh my God, what are they talking about? What is she writing in that book?" So he's nervous. And she had, I think Otis had actually taken the book and left it in his locker, and Groff goes in and opens Otis's locker, gets it, makes photocopies of all these notes and plasters them all over the wall. and pretends that someone else has done it. So all of this really private information, but everyone is just out there.
So confidentiality is out the window. Everybody knows everybody's shit.
Yeah.
And essentially he's getting everybody to be upset with her so that she's not in the school giving advice anymore.
It makes it seem like it was her professional breach.
Right.
Rather than his. So he's constantly trying to get back at everyone.
Yes. Yeah. And then through that, because stuff came out, the notes also said that the teacher, the writing teacher, likes dirty talk. So somebody wrote on the wall, so and so, is a dirty talker or something like that. Something about being dirty. So yeah.
But then she's convinced that it's one of her girls.
Right.
And so she locks them all in the room, basically gives them detention, and is talking about how horrific it is if women treat each other like this.
Right.
And so she gives them a bunch of tasks like, here's newspaper, circle the A, every single A that you see. Like she's trying to give them these sort of demeaning, like kind of mind-numbing tasks.
Right.
And they're just like, what the fuck is the point? Because it was none of them. And then so she wants to go off and fuck the music teacher. That's really what she wants to do. That's what she's thinking about. And so she's like, what task? And she was like, since they were extremely different group of girls, some of them are in the same peer group, some are not. She's like, okay, find out what you all have in common. And so they're sitting there probably for a few hours.
Right.
And then Amy's story comes out because I think she starts crying. She's really upset about what happened to her on the bus.
And she was basically, somebody was jerking off on the bus, jerked off on her leg, and they came on her jeans. And since then, she was like traumatized. She was triggered, couldn't go back on the bus, and she hadn't told anybody about it. So she's there, and now it's kind of boiling over. And then from that first, admission that had happened, and then you see all these stories from the girls talking about essentially like non-consensual things that have happened to them, sexual assault, sexual violence,
and harassment.
And I that day seeing that episode, I called Daniel because I was so upset, and it was interesting how it triggered me because I can hear things about, unfortunately, about rape and sexual assault because it's the work that I do. I talk about this all the time. But they were talking about something so specific that to me is like the onset or the core of the like rape culture and everything. And it's remembering when I was a little girl or a young, like a teenager when men just fucking felt like they had every right to touch me or to talk to me or to... It was so uncomfortable, and it was so hard to explain to people the fear it took to walk out of my house every day, to walk down the stairs out of my building, and to walk down the street. Because I am not lying and I am not exaggerating when I say on a daily basis I saw at least 2 penises. I saw people just talking to me. And so when they were talking about all those things, I like hyperventilated, and it just reminded me of all of that time of being afraid and not being able to tell anybody because you think you're being silly,
Right.
So they really, really brought up some good points on when the teacher asked them, so what was it, that connects you all? And it's like, unfortunately, it's this shit. That's what connects us all.
And what I thought was really beautiful about the ending of that scene was they had this conversation that really kind of made them all a type of friends. Like there was a possibility of acquaintance, at least, amongst girls who normally wouldn't speak to each other. And they didn't give a fuck about the teacher at that point.
That's true.
She was clearly doing her own thing, which she was. And even they were so dismissive, they were walking away. Like it wasn't a conversation for them to have with her.
Right.
It was a conversation for them to have with each other.
Right.
And then there are a series of scenes after that, like even going on the bus with Amy. So she can get back on the bus, and she's in the middle, and they're sitting alongside her because she's having flashbacks and essentially having like PTSD episodes around what happened. And then they also have a scene where they go to the junkyard and they're taking out their aggression.
I call it the rage room.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was something for them to do as peers. It wasn't. It was like the adults don't need to have this conversation or even facilitate this for us. This is ours.
Yeah.
I thought that was beautiful.
Also, one thing that I absolutely loved about the whole conversation about sexual violence is that they chose the onset of that conversation through something that happened on the bus by somebody jerking off, which most people wouldn't even think is sexual assault.
Right.
They wouldn't even think that was anything. That person was not assaulted. That person just had the thing out, whatever. And it very, very much is sexual violence, you know, and stuff. And so I like, because it's shitty to say it this way, but it's easier to show a scene where someone is being raped, you know, P and V and stuff, and then talking about how horrific that is. But there's the
dailiness.
It's
daily,
like
ongoing things.
That is very traumatic, and she could not get on the bus, and she kept on seeing every man's face like that man, and that's how serious it could be. You know, it really can, and it's like not downplaying the seriousness of this vulnerability, people using power over, and the fact that she said out loud, "This guy is wanking on me,"
and
nobody did anything.
Away. Yeah.
No one did anything. And she said, I have to get off the bus. I have to get off the bus. And got off. That guy was still on the bus. Right. She got off and she had fucking jizz all over her pants. Right. That's really fucking traumatic that no one would say anything. So it really brings up a lot of things about bystanders, about and even this girlfriend friendship, right? Yeah. Because these girls, some of them are fucking mean as hell to each other, you know, calling each other names. But in that moment, I love that they got on the bus with her. Yeah. And that they sandwiched her in, and then they said, "We got you." Yeah. Which is a big deal. Yeah. Which is a very big deal.
They validated and I thought also what they shared, none of them shared about like a PIV rape scene.
Yes, exactly.
It was all these daily acts of stalking, being followed, harassment, right? So it was really pointing out like the layers of like sexual violence, patriarchal violence, and denaturalizing, denormalizing that experience.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously we love this fucking show. I really do. I cannot wait for next season. And so I was thinking, what are some hopes for season 3?
Oh yes, you had a list too.
Yeah, I think. I know for sure I want more about Eric and Adam. I want more explicit information about the bullying and Eric coming to terms with like what he wants, right? Because he got this little taste of a kind of a loving, doty relationship with Raheem, but then something very exciting and mysterious with Adam. Right. So, you know, what are the right choices for his well-being? Right. And then I'm very interested in Jackson and Viv. Yes, Viv. So Viv, we didn't talk about Viv, but Viv is the person who tutored Jackson when he needed help with something, I forget. And she's like one of the smartest people in the school.
And a black
woman, fat woman, smart as fuck. And he is this, you know, swimmer, athletic. Everybody loves him. Totally different groups, and they.
Oh yeah, it's because he's an athlete and he's thinking that he may not want to be an athlete anymore. Right. Because he's kind of coerced into being this really high-level swimmer because of his mom's pipe dream. And so he has to get his grades up if he wants to have some other future.
Right, because he wants to do theater now and stuff, right? Yeah. And so their friendship, actually, it's a beautiful connection that they have. And he is sharing things with her that I don't think he's ever shared with anybody. Like she's being vulnerable, shared about his anxiety. He shared about his parents, and he shared about harming himself. And that's another scene that I thought was super powerful because she found out that he was harming.
Because he tells her that when he was working with some athletes and he was training them, as the weights were coming down on one of the machines, he put his hand in there and he broke his hand so that he wouldn't have to swim for a while. Yeah. And
because it was too stressful. It was too stressful for him, and he didn't know how to say it. And so I loved her when because she's so smart. She has all these statistics in her mind, so she knew the probability of him self-harming and probably committing suicide is higher if she didn't say anything. So the scene is that he comes into the house and she's sitting there with his 2 moms, and she was like, "I'm sorry, dude. I had to," and I was like, "Good for her. Like, good for her," because I know that was hard, but it would be another story if later on she'd be like, fuck, I wish I would have said something. Right. I wish I could have, you know. And that was good. Now they know. Right. And it actually ended up being better because he didn't have to do swimming anymore. He had a great conversation with his moms and, you know, so forth and so on.
You know, another piece of that I think may have been a layer there, which I think there's a sort of harm reduction approach and moving away from reporting in a particular way. Because so often it's up to, you know, teachers as mandated reporters, but then you're reporting to authorities, and then that could have, you know, maybe the moms would have been investigated for a type of child abuse, right, for kind of putting him through this training and blah, blah, blah. But if the peer is taking that on, right, there's a way that they can all handle it together, and it facilitated that conversation, even though Jackson was mad, you know, because you think even the scene with Amy, what Maeve wanted was for Amy to report to the police for her birthday. Yes. Yeah. And so they go and do that. Amy's really nervous. She's farting all over the place because she's so nervous.
She's like, I'm sorry, I fart when I'm nervous, you know.
But at the end of the day, the way it was resolved, again, was these girls corralling around each other.
That's so true. I didn't even think about that. That is so true because she didn't want to go to the police station and there wasn't really anything they could do. And it was more like harm reduction approach, community support, rather than a system approach.
It makes me think that's part of what the show's trying to do. You know, show the possibility of.
Oh, so I love this show. Summer, in the summer 2021, it should come out. I'm hoping, and I'm sure they're gonna have much more characters. Yeah. And that was it. Oh, yeah, and then I said I wanted Adam's mom and Adam's dad to get back together, and then Adam's mom would be the dom in that relationship, and that's when it will work. Yeah.
And then I wanted Ola and Lily to be an opportunity to show more possibilities for queer sex.
Yes. Oh, yes, because you were talking about the masturbation scene, when they were about to have sex. And it was hurting, and then you were like, why didn't she just go down on her?
The issue is that Lily is having to dilate her vagina because she has there's something going on that her vagina constricts at the moment of sex, even though Lily's like, I want to have sex. But the focus is on penetrative sex. Right. And so I'm curious about them elaborating that a bit more, especially because they do have queer cis women characters. Right. So just curious where they're going to take that.
Yeah. But I did like the mutual masturbation scene because it was like, okay, let's think about this. So we don't have to do that. Let's do this. And so they definitely have much more leeway language in this show. It's very comical, but also very, very serious. And it is definitely a show that I would recommend any parent, guardian, or anyone that has any children in their lives, because it's a lesson plan right in front of you, really. You watch the show and you could talk about all of the things and how people would do something differently if that's something that happened to them or their school. Do they know someone that's happened to? Right. It's chock full of great themes in there, from drug addiction to abortion to mental health to poverty to just all of it.
And being able to talk about underage people, within the safe confines of adult people, and it being a show. Right. So we don't have to keep lying to ourselves and pretending like middle schoolers and high schoolers are not having sex. Right. Exactly. Right? And therefore need the information. Right. And the people around them should have that information. And so it's really about a cultural shift around how we talk about sex, sexuality, consent, sex practice.
Yeah. And also, you said like everybody's happy, so at least everybody's talking about it, because I also love that they brought a character in that was asexual. Because she was just like, I don't want to have sex with anybody, and then she thought something was wrong with her, and Jean was just like, honey, nothing's wrong with you.
Didn't miss a beat.
It was
that's called asexuality.
Yes, that's what I loved about it. It wasn't like, let's look into this or anything. She was like, no, that's asexuality. You're fine. Right. Some people don't want this, and it's a spectrum, and so they really touch on a lot of stuff. So it is. And even if you don't know things as an adult and a parent, it's okay. Right. Because this show really can teach you that being vulnerable with young people is okay. Right. That you can learn together. That you can show your fuck ups and you can show your successes, because that'll only make you human to young people, and they'll see you as a human. They won't see you as this authority figure telling them top down what to do, and half the time we don't have the answer, right? Because we're all navigating the same thing.
Right.
Watch it. We'll be back for season 3. I'm hoping that they have much more seasons, because it's really
I guess they can't. They can only go so far because they have to graduate from high school, right?
And then do a college one. That's when all the shit happens too. Right. College could be a whole bunch of other mess there. Mm-hmm. All right, everyone. So thank you so much for watching Connecting the Dots, and we will see you next month. Bye.